Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. And we're on part 2. Remember, we were dealing with the top 3 things that I would recommend that you fix on a sales page. And the most predictable question that pops up at this point in time is, shouldn't we talk about something else as well, like the offer, the uniqueness? Yes. There are a whole lot of things that you can fix on a sales page. Just like there are a whole lot of things you can fix in your house, or a whole lot of things you can fix in your desk. But these are the 3. Well, we'll slip in a 4th one, maybe a half. But the reason why I've picked it, because they have the greatest impact, and because they're quick to fix. They're things that you're probably not doing, and they're quick to fix. The other elements, yes, they all are important. Like every part of the human body is important. But when we have to make a choice, we have to make a choice. And these are my choices. So the first one that we covered in last time was not just the problem, but how do we take that problem and then extend that problem? And how do we focus on a recurring problem? Because that's what people have a problem with all the time. That's what they want to fix all the time. It's like a plumbing problem, or a mechanic problem, or a whatever problem, but it's a recurring problem that is what your business needs to fix all the time. The second thing that we looked at were things called bullets. And yes, you do bullets. Everybody does bullets. Or if you don't do bullets, then now you know that they are really headlines that come in the middle of your sales page. The problem is that we don't do enough bullets. So we don't slow down the client enough so that they stop scanning at high speed, because the bullets enable you to stop the client from just going from top to bottom at 100 miles an hour. And so that's what we covered in the first 2. Those are my picks for the first one and the second one. And this is the third one. And this is the one that if you said, which one would you get rid of and which one would you keep, and you had only one choice, I would pick testimonials. And that is because if you do testimonials right, they're like a story. You can almost have a sales page with just the product, just the service, and the testimonials, and people would be ready to buy. The reason why testimonials work is because they are huge when it comes to reducing risk. And risk is just like a blind date. There's a reason why we don't like the concept of the blind date. You don't know the person you're about to meet. They don't know much about you either. When you think about it, this isn't so very odd because we meet people that we don't know all the time. However, with a blind date, the stakes are high because both parties are looking for some level of fun and companionship. When you have too little information, it feels like you're completely out of control. And our goal is usually to get back that control. So if we're meeting someone, we're headed to a restaurant, or we're staying at a hotel, we want to know in advance what the experience feels like. It's possible that the uncertain encounter might be a delightful surprise, but as far as possible, we are risk averse. The question is, how risk averse are we? So if you were to buy an app that costs 99 cents, should you spend more than 5 seconds looking at the page? No matter what your income, it doesn't pay to read about the reviews of an app that costs less than $1. Yet, as a general rule, we want to ensure that we made the right decision even when paying a pittance. We look through the 5-star reviews, we briefly look at the 3-star, we may even wander across to the 1-star reviews. Why all of this? Why would you engage in such foolish behavior? And that is because, at some level, risk is uppermost in our head. It might not cost much, but it's the risk of installing it and then trying to figure it out and all of that nuisance factor. And when you look at sales pages, or you look at any transaction for that matter, what we have are 3 core issues, which is attraction, conversion, and risk. When we start with the problem at the top of the page in those 2 or 3 paragraphs, that's all attraction. The bullets work really hard to convert people. But we also need to give the nod to risk. And if you had one choice on your sales page, that space should be allocated to testimonials. Testimonials have got more sophisticated over the years as well. They used to be, I love this product, or I adore working with XYZ. And then there would be this yucky, oversweetened version of their adoration for the product or service. However, we've learned that reverse testimonials work better. Why? Because we're skeptical by nature. If someone starts a testimonial with, the first 2 times I visited this restaurant, I hated the service. However, I had no choice. My kitchen was burned down. It was the only restaurant open on the weekend. Well, that's dramatic, isn't it? You're not dealing with sugary stuff anymore. Now, that testimonial is doing a lot more. It's telling a story. And if you've got testimonials that are just stringy, just 1-2 lines, they don't really do so much. When you go on Amazon and you read those long, chunky testimonials, you get a very good picture of how involved that person is. They're buying a desk, but it looks like they're buying a house. They're buying just an app, but it feels like they're buying something a lot more expensive. A good testimonial shows where the person started, where they got lost, what they loved, what was unfolding, and how they reached the other side. And that's the story. Maybe they had a few bruises, but overall, they feel they would do it again. Knowing that someone was so excited that they'd say yes in a heartbeat is just the testimonial that you want to read. You want to reduce the risk or even eliminate it. Hence, when you go through a story testimonial, you become one with that story. Testimonials become crucial because they tell a story, but it is the client who does the talking. It's a rookie mistake to let the client decide what to write in the testimonial. You need to have at least a few questions in advance that get the story out to the client. And ideally, I'd even send an example of the testimonial that you want, someone else's testimonial that was a lot more detailed. Because if you let a client write whatever they feel like, you will get a testimonial that's totally unfocused, possibly rambling, and not as powerful as it could be. And this means that the risk level has not been reduced for the prospect. They still feel very much like a blind date whenever they're about to buy your product or service. Blind dates can turn out to be fun. Buying a 99-cent app should be a non-decision, and yet it's not. We feel varying levels of risk, and one of the most effective tools to reduce that risk is to have that testimonial. Not just any testimonial, but one that's engineered. Well engineered with specific questions and a healthy dose of skepticism. You take the main problem, you take the bullets and the well-engineered testimonial together, and you still have much to cover on the sales page. However, as far as the top 3 go, these were the ones I wouldn't leave out. But since we're on the roll, let's say, what else would I cover? What else could you do that would be simple and would provide that same sort of reduction of risk and slowing the customer down? It depends on what you're trying to achieve. The goal of the sales page is to get clients to read, yet most of us tend to skim. Hence, even if we get the clients to read the headline and move through, the speed of skimming increases quite substantially. If you look at these heat maps that they have on sales pages, you'll see that the top is quite red, and then after that it starts to waver quite a bit. So when does it stop yet again? It stops at the bullets, but it also stops at another place. And that's where the graphics are located. The graphics can just be pretty pictures, and people go past that very quickly. But if you do them well, they're speed breakers. So when we see a graphic, we slow down. But if you're going to have a graphic, it's well worth your time to add a caption. And the caption should have both a problem and a solution. We'll take 2 or 3 examples. And here is an example from The Psychology of Starting Up, which is a series that we sell. So it's about starting up. And it goes like this. When starting up a business, the biggest problem is that we're frozen when it comes to idea generation. This session shows you how to generate those ideas and enter a saturated market. So there you have it, the problem and the solution. And this is just the caption. So you're reading it, you see the picture. It's a little cartoon in our case. And then you see this problem and the solution. Or we'll take a second example. When you're starting a business, should you get more clients or is it better to increase revenue instead? Session 2 shows you the system that has stood the test of time and how you can use it to your advantage. The third one. To get and keep clients, do we need to be an expert in our field? In this third part, we explore why expertise is desired but not required, and what you need to do to get good results in a much shorter time frame. So there you go. Those are problems and solutions. Graphic, captions. Captions have problems and solutions. And the combination of the graphic as well as the problem and solution causes the client or the prospect to slow down, to read more, to get more curious. And the more they are involved, they are more likely to get to the point where they are considering your product. They may not buy it, but the second time you remind them or the third time you remind them, that's how they get eventually to the product. So if you want to add a 4th element to your list, there it is, the graphics and the accompanying captions. And that brings us to the end of this very short tour of the elements on a sales page. There are a lot of elements on the sales page, and all of them, including the layout, including the tone, all of that matters. And occasionally we'll have a sales page course. We had one last year, and we probably have one in 2024. I don't know. But what you want to do is you want to go to sales pages, especially where you bought from. So if you've gone to the Psychotactics sales page and you bought a product, then go back and analyze it, deconstruct it. What does the problem look like? What do the bullets look like? Are there even bullets on the page? There might not be. And then what do the testimonials look like? Why did I buy this product? You might not know the answer, but it's good to analyze it. And then the graphics and the captions on the page. What do they look like? What is the problem and solution in that caption? And this gives you a smaller framework to work with. It's not everything, and it shouldn't be everything, because that's why we don't get anything done, because we're trying to do everything. But if you just go down this tiny little path, you'll find that you're able to achieve a lot more. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. Let's find out what's happening in Psychotactics land. If it's December, it's Santa Claus and it's all of that stuff. But before that, long before that, we have pre-sale. Long before we knew what pre-sale was, we were doing it. So when we had the Brain Alchemy Masterclass way back in 2004, we had this workshop in California, in Los Angeles. And we weren't consciously doing pre-sale. But what we were doing was giving clients a chance to look at what they could expect. And that's really what pre-sale is all about. Think of it as a dinner that you're going to have. People show up to dinner, and the first time they see the dinner is when they're seated at the table. And they go, oh, what's this? What's that? Tell me something more about this food. And then there's pre-sale, where you have created enough drama just before or long before, to the point where they know exactly what they're going to get, and they are super eager. They are many times more eager than if you just put it in front of them and said, hey, here's dinner. When we do this with a product or service, it's very effective. And this is what we do at Psychotactics. This is what I'm asking you to do right now. When you go to psychotactics.com/presale, you'll get an understanding of how we go about pre-selling something. And in this case, it's just one product. So go to psychotactics.com/presale and find out for yourself. And there's a really good presentation there as well, which I did in Australia. And it covers quite a lot about pre-sale. So that's all free. Go for it. And with that, we come to the end of this podcast. And I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye. Still listening? Recently, I bought myself a standing desk. This is the second standing desk. The first standing desk I use for this podcast itself. And back when I bought this first desk, they used to have standing desks on top of desks. And now, of course, you have a standing desk all by itself. And it's a motorized one. Why am I telling you this? Because, yes, I spent a lot of time with the testimonials. There are so many standing desks available and so many types. And all of them are motorized and all of them are blah, blah, blah. And you wonder, how are you going to make that decision? Well, eventually I made the decision on how good it was, but also how nice it looked. Almost everyone who wrote a testimonial said it looked adorable. So there you go. I'm going to get an adorable standing desk, and I'm going to do my drawing there instead of sitting at the dining table, which is what I've done for my whole life. In my parents' house, I sat at the dining table, dropped ink all over the place. In my house, yes, I sit at the dining table with all my paints and stuff. So finally, I'm getting off that dining table and using this desk in the office. And I'll also double it up because, motorized. So I can use it for webinars and stuff. Yeah, just first world problems. I know. Anyway, we'll see you in 5000 BC. You know where that is, 5000bc.com. I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye.